Today, we're retiring to the warm, fuzzy hearth of NPCdom. I hope you like nostalgia because today we're asking the DMs who used to be players, have you ever reused one of your former player characters as an NPC? And how did that go? Part 1. I DM and play back and forth every week, and I always use my PCs as bartenders and name the tavern after them. So once I made a homebrew gargoyle fighter who was super nice and protective, gentle giant in a way. He was the barman in the first campaign I DM'd, Curse of Strahd, and I named the tavern the Gracious Gargoyle. They're usually just the hook for the first session, or sometimes they're key NPCs. All depends on what my players decide to do with, for, or to the character. Yep, Bane, my necromancer bard, ended up in my world as the official Grim Reaper of sorts. He did a little of everything, jumping into the dream world to help give nightmares, played at the local inn to help pay for the orphanage, raised some dead to help them seek vengeance, and helped heal up some folks when a giant monster, I think it was a Voth, came and attacked the city. A few of the PCs ended up becoming good friends with him, but they mostly got on his nerves. He's one of those good necromancers who does evil because the living never seem to take care of or respect their dead, so he has to do their job for them. When he found out one of the characters never mourned for her dead backstory parents, he was pissed. That didn't end well, and actually upset the player, but putting the fear of the evil necromancer into the never shows emotion knight was fun. Bane is now an NPC in one of my former players' worlds. She plays with two of the players from the campaign Bane originated in, and hearing how one of them still has a grudge against Bane for pulling a prank on him, just a scarecrow up in the character's clothes so he had to walk around in his PJs to find them from that old campaign, has me a little worried about how she is going to play him. I kind of want to ask if I can just jump in and play him for her, but since she hasn't offered, I don't think she needs me to. Yes, I was DMing a campaign and this party were all level 5. My PC, level 15 human fighter, was the guard commander of what was essentially the hub town, and I also used another party member's character with their permission as the big bad evil guy, as the two characters had a long-standing rivalry, and with how that campaign ended, it made sense for both characters to be like that. Anyway, after catching up with the big bad evil guy, the party talked to him a bit, where he implied he knows the commander rather well, and suggested they keep an eye on him, heavily implying that he was the traitor they were trying to find. He was not. This was simply an attempt to prompt the party to ask about the two characters' shared history. Unfortunately, only one of the players saw what the big bad evil guy was doing, attempting to use the party to kill my character. So the party ran back and immediately attacked the commander in the barracks in the middle of the day. Needless to say, it didn't really go their way, even with combat ending before more guards arriving. It was fun to show off just how outmatched they were, essentially wiping the party non-lethally without even getting hurt. The party faced little consequences because I thought being wrecked like that was punishment enough for them, and in-game because the big bad evil guy's whole deal is charming and manipulating people. I've done this a few times, but I'll only cover 2 of them. Well, 2.5. One of them came with an NPC they were friends with when I played the character. Sapphire Swiftrunner was a swift stride shifter arcane trickster rogue I played for a couple months. It was an interesting concept of a campaign. Not so much for the setting, but because we were rotating DMing every 4 to 6 weeks to let someone else run an arc of the story. Her backstory was she lived in the land of Osi and was raised by jaguars after her parents were killed. This went on for about 20-ish years until she was discovered by a traveling merchant's caravan who took her in and taught her how to speak and read and such. They also discovered she had an innate ability to be really stealthy. She was very gifted at sleight of hand, and she was exceptionally intelligent and learned to read and write remarkably fast. She could also temporarily shift into a jaguar-esque form, thanks to becoming one with the spirit of the jaguar after, you guessed it, being raised by jaguars. But because of this, she was utterly clueless on the ways of society, and bringing her from the wastes of Osi to the civilization of the Dale lands of Faerun was a drastic change for her. She reacted to every new thing with the curiosity of a 2-year-old, and it took her a while to, as she put it, learn how to people. When that campaign ended, I really missed playing the character and the antics she got into, like stealing the pants right off some poor chap in a tavern while trying to acquire enough money to rent a room for the party for the night. So when I began running my own campaign at the end of 2019, I used Sapphire to introduce a slaver group into the campaign. In the campaign I had played her in, we had rescued some people from these slavers who I eventually called the White Raven when I took my turn as DM. So in my new campaign, I had Sapphire come in as a backstory character for one of my players, and we played out rescuing her best friend Tasra, who had once again been captured by the slavers. Sapphire eventually traveled with the group for a time and even moved into the village the players lived in. She became a recurring character in the story, and the party met the leader of the slavers, who was one of the big bad evil guys, while yet again attempting to save Tasra. However, the best PC turned NPC I've ever used had to be the PC I played in a friend's campaign, who literally should have been an NPC to begin with. He was a dairy merchant with a slight Russian accent who usually talked about himself in the third person and was a likable guy, but not really the sharpest knife in the drawer. His name was Torvat, and he was loosely based on Tevye from Fiddler on the Roof. His biggest shtick was selling cheese. Would you like to buy some cheese? Torvat has the best cheese. Come, see for yourself. I tell you what, I give you a sample now. You can buy some later, okay? He was by far the worst character I've ever played because he had zero combat skills and had no interest in fighting anyway. He had a daughter to raise, and dragging her around everywhere wasn't going to be good for her. So he left the campaign and became an NPC both in my friend's campaign, where I occasionally drop in to play him, or in my campaign, where he became a dairy merchant whom the players convinced to move to their village. To this day, if I'm talking with any of the players who were in that campaign and I drop into my Torvat accent and say, "Would you like to buy some cheese?" they immediately start talking about how much they miss Torvat. I used to be a player in the tabletop games we'd run with my husband's old college buddies. We ran a few games, and between us, my husband and I had a total of 8 characters who were all very different. A few years later, we put together a game ourselves. I wrote the story and created the world while my husband ran combat encounters. All of our old characters came back as NPCs to fill up the central city hub we had made. For the most part, they acted as mentors for the party of players I had, people who could help train the party in their various skills. We had new original NPCs we'd made as well, but these 8 characters were people who could be recruited to help in battle that already had character sheets ready to go. Of course, we like to run our D&D campaigns in the same world, so a lot of our old PCs end up in it. I think most notable is Saul Foldren, a level 12 fighter, or maybe a ranger, I forget, and legendary bounty hunter. His player played him as a stoic, silent type who got the job done. You knew that if you encountered him, shit was getting real. We've also had former PCs return as villains, informants, and briefly as allies. It makes the world feel more lived in, and like our characters have their own lives beyond the adventure of that campaign. Hello, my dear friend. I hope you enjoyed this luxurious stroll down memory lane. Thank you for sending the writhing energy tendrils of your infinite consciousness in our direction for the duration of this entire video. If you have a player character that made it to NPCdom, we'd love to hear about it in the comment section below. You are also welcome to say hello just for the sake of human interaction if that's what you're feeling. We got you, fam. If you have another D&D story you'd like to share with us, please join our subreddit community where we source most of the threads and stories that we showcase here on the channel. And if you're looking for a group, our Discord server might have your fix. All pertinent links are below. I hope this week that you are participating in or seeking a creative output. Maybe you play some D&D, maybe you play some music, maybe you paint along with Bob Ross, but whatever that looks like to you, enjoy it. And remember how cool it is that as a human, we get to experience what it feels like to take pride in something that we pulled out of the imagination and transmuted into reality. Like, how special is that in the cosmic sense? Now, if you found yourself thinking, wow, this Dave Makes Noises fella is pretty nifty, I wonder what noises he makes. First of all, the answer is many. And secondly, you can see what I'm up to on my TikTok at Dave Makes Noises. Thank you again for watching. Please sub for Nat 20s. We're so glad you're here with us, and we look forward to seeing you again next time.